What's up peeps, how's it going? Toofty here, and today we have another sentry spot guide and we're looking at Badwater. A really awesome map with loads of interesting little places to build, lots of shelves and nooks and crannies, so it makes it especially good fun for the engineer. As always, I'm just going to go through some of the spots I like to use. I'm going to try and avoid some of the more obvious ones, but of course keep exploring, keep mixing it up, because there's loads of spots out there to try out. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So let's take a quick look at the map. Here's the blue and red spawns, and the cart travels along this path under this tunnel. As it gets to the second control point, a barrier is put up so you can't take that shortcut through as the red team, and then eventually the cart is pushed around the last corner and blue team wins if they get it this far. I'm going to be breaking this map down into 4 parts just to make it easier, so let's jump into the first one and see what we've got. At the very start of the map, the blues will be spawning in along the bottom here, and a lot of people you'll find build in this little area here which is protected by the rocks. It's okay, I find it fairly easy to take this space out as a demo man, but I'm not going to talk about that today. The second spot you used to see more often than you do nowadays is in this little hut here. Now for some reason I don't see engineers build here quite as often these days, but again I don't think it's ideal, so maybe people are just starting to realise that and trying other spots. So I'm not going to talk about either of these. Instead, the first position I wanted to talk about is a little bit further forward, a little bit more aggressive, and it's just behind this rock here. So the nice thing about this is it covers the main route up to the right, but it also covers people trying to flank round up towards the cliff on the left and gives them a bit of a hard time if they want to try and flank round. It's a little bit more aggressive and sometimes, you know, you won't be able to keep it up for too long, but it's good fun to play around with. The second spot is my old reliable one. You do see other engineers build up here, but I'll talk a bit more about some of the specifics as to where I build and what I do. So it's on this ledge here. This covers obviously the main area in the middle and the route to the left as well. Really strong, really reliable, and a great place to teleport your team into. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm just popping up my telly and dispenser behind those rocks there, and just keeping them out of the way, and then putting the sentry gun up just behind this rock here. So it's got cover from any long range sight lines, but it can see really well to the left and right. As you can see, anyone coming up the left makes pretty light work of. Anyone coming up on the cliff on the right, again it can see and can normally take them out as well. I'm just running backwards and forwards, trying to upgrade my telly and my dispenser. Keeping an eye out to see what's coming down the left here, and just putting some pressure on any spies or enemies that come up. Like I said, it's kind of an aggressive position, and you may get a team that just completely demolish you straight away. But occasionally it works really well, and I've had a lot of fun playing here, something a little bit different to try out. And when it does work, like it is here, it can work really well. So the second one, and this is the one I use most often, is up here on this cliff edge here. And first I put a dispenser down against the wall there, and then I put a sentry gun just behind this rock here, just far enough to the right so that snipers don't quite have a sight line to your sentry gun, because that's just going to be a bit of a pain if they can see it. Teleporter goes right in the corner there. That's a really great spot for that, because often people don't really notice it until the last minute. Just upgrading everything, and once we're set up, it's just a matter of basically checking out the pathway to the right here, and just looking out to the left in case you have to use your Wrangler for any long range enemies. I tend to just sort of move around a lot, checking for snipers, checking the cart as it goes past, and checking the cliff walkway to the right. The great thing about this spot for me is that you're teleporting your team into the high ground, and if you get the support of your team up there, even if the cart's gone all the way past there, you're able to do a really good job of fending the other team off. So the next area of the map, there's just a couple of spots I want to talk about. One of the spots you used to see people build in a lot is within this little area here. I don't think this is ideal. You're kind of stuck in there, and a demo man can quite easily kind of just trap you in with stickies. Another one you see pretty much everyone build at is on top of this ledge here. Now, even though this is a really common spot, I'm still going to talk you through this today a bit. There's nothing really that beats it around this area in my opinion, but I can talk a bit more again about exactly where I build and what strategies I use when I'm building up here. An alternative to the ledge is actually roughly the same place but down on the floor. This can be effective, but to be honest, it just takes a lot longer to get set up here because there's not much metal down there, so it doesn't give you that much of a benefit, maybe the element of surprise, but other than that, you're better off probably just building up at the top where you can get set up much quicker. So first thing I do is I put a sentry gun facing directly forward on that edge there, and then I put a dispenser behind this kind of venty thing. A great place for the teleporter I find is just kind of in that corner there. So it's kind of the last thing the enemy will see as they push around the corner, kind of hidden away there. People tend to build all the way along here in various places. For me, I kind of make sure that basically anyone by the cart is covered by the sentry gun. Any further back and the sentry gun may not be able to reach down there, so it's roughly where I've got it here. It seems to be good for me at least. Once I'm set up, I just kind of run around, do some loops around this top area, checking for any enemies or any spies, making sure I'm not staying still. Often you find people try and come around the back. I know if I was a demo man I would come the back route up the stairs, so just making sure that if you see anyone come that way, you're applying pressure onto them straight away. Again, it's a great place to get your team teleported into, the high ground. The only real vulnerability is an Uber coming in from the top route, or if a sniper or a soldier somehow is able to snipe it down by the cart. So this next part of the map, there are loads of little areas you can build in, and I've been trying to test them all out, see which ones kind of work for me. Two of the spots that are popular, the first one is kind of under the bridge here, and the second one is just before the little stairway into the raised bit to the left here. The second one I'm not going to talk about. It's not too bad. There are spots around there that I prefer, so I'll talk about them in a second. But the first one, I think, even though it's pretty popular, I still want to kind of look at it because it can be a bit of a game-changing position if you're on fairly well-balanced teams. So yeah, it's just under the bridge here, and I'll talk a bit more about exactly where I placed it so it kind of covers any enemies coming from both sides. The second spot, again, I've seen engineers build here, but not quite as often. It's just on the raised ledge just behind the first spot I showed you. You really need to get set up a little bit early to make sure you're ready for the push, but it can be a lot of fun to set up here. Although it might not be the strongest place to build, it's certainly a lot of fun to play around with. Finally, a much more sensible position is just around the corner. The map's a bit distorted here, so it's difficult to see, obviously with the roof as well, exactly where I mean. But basically it's just around the corner, near the big metal pack, and I'll talk a bit more about exactly where I build in a second. So yeah, if I'm going to build under this bridge, I tend to put my sentry gun just to the right of this pillar. That means any soldiers above trying to shoot down on you, they can't do it without actually jumping down. So you're kind of protected from behind, which is nice. I accidentally put the sentry gun a little bit too far forward here, so I'm actually getting shots onto the stairs as well, which is interesting. If you have any idea what just happened there, I'm happy to hear from you. But yeah, it's a pretty nice spot. You can put the dispenser and telly just behind you anywhere, and it can be pretty strong and difficult to take down. I know I've struggled as a demo man to take this one out before, so yeah, definitely worthwhile trying out. The other one I tried out for this video that I didn't have so much luck with was directly above where we just were. I thought it might be a nice quirky one, a bit different, just putting it here so it can look both towards the corridor on the right as well as down towards the cart, but every time I did it, I didn't last too long. So taking a look at this ledge now, what I do is I put the sentry gun as far to the right on those planks as possible. Now the reason I do that is because the main vulnerability you'll have is people coming in from that right pathway. Like the spy here, he can very almost see that sentry gun any further to the left and he'd have a good shot on it. So just putting it as far to the right as possible kind of protects it a little bit from that. As you can see, it shoots down onto the cart really nicely. It makes it really tricky for soldiers to shoot up. Sometimes the rockets just go straight past, which is nice. And then anyone coming through the left exit as well, it's really tricky to peek round there without being shot at immediately. Dispenser and telly are just behind me in this room here, nice and protected. When I'm set up, I kind of just sort of hover to the left of the sentry gun, keeping an eye out both ways, taking some pot shots with my gun. As you saw there, I was able to tank a buffed heavy, so if you need to, you can actually tortoise shell a bit. And the nice thing is here, if you do eventually go down, because you're still in this kind of raised area, if you manage to stay alive, you can actually set up another base a little bit further back in various places. Here I'm just trying behind this wall here. Not going to last long, but it does a good job of defending the cart for a little bit, and it's good fun to try out these different spots. So another old reliable for me is just around this corner here. I'm plonking the sentry gun down pretty much in the middle of this area here. There's a huge metal pack just behind me, so it's really quick and easy to get set up very quickly. The dispenser and telly can just go to the left of me there, kind of hidden away. You can make this corner quite a nice bottleneck really. You don't see an awful lot of engineers building here, but it can be a pretty decent spot to defend at. Normally an Uber would probably finish me off, but if the heavy comes around the corner like he does here with his gloves out, makes it a tad bit easier, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. Another spot that wasn't quite on the map earlier, but is kind of interesting and a lot of fun to try out, is just up in this corridor here. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the sentry gun down just so it's out of sight of any snipers or soldiers in the distance there, but anyone pushing the cart to the left will immediately be taken out, and anyone coming through the corridor again will be shot at immediately. It's not somewhere you often get a chance to actually set up at from the offset, but if you think things are going well like I did here, repositioning up here can be a lot of fun to try out. It also means you can spam down shots all the way down to that health pack over there, which helps keep the enemies under pressure. And as you can see, these rockets, they're coming in, but they're just hitting the wall behind me kind of harmlessly. So yeah, it's a nice little area of the map to try and control as an NG. So the last part of the map, you'll find that an awful lot of people tend to build in these two locations here. And to be fair, they are pretty decent. If you want to play it safe and the opposing team are doing well, then it's a nice option. You can sort of tuck your sentry away into one of these corners and do a fairly decent job of defending the last point. Each have kind of vulnerabilities kind of from the opposite side of the map, but they're as good as any spot, to be honest, at this last point. But I'm not going to talk about those today because they're probably well documented. Instead, I wanted to talk about this area of the map here. An alternative to holding down on the ground floor, the idea of holding a little bit further forward on this corner here. The second spot I wanted to mention, which is a bit more unusual again, is at the very back of this ground floor area, kind of on the slope down to your spawn. Even though there are sightlines to it, you can sort of position your sentry gun in a way that makes it a little bit less noticeable, and therefore you can kind of get away with it being in the open there. So yeah, there's no like exact spot I like to use around here, but it's basically the idea of if you find that your team's doing a pretty good job of holding a little bit further forward than usual, I find it best to try and bring your gun a little bit further forward, maybe bring a dispenser around to this corner and just get a little bit more involved in the fight. By putting it on the slope there, it's quite well protected, perhaps not immediately noticeable, but can cover both routes in quite nicely. Another option is just a little bit further back on the ledge here, having a dispenser behind you so you can sort of keep topped up. Anyone coming around to the flank behind me takes care of them quite nicely, and anyone coming the main route in puts a lot of pressure onto them. And even if the enemy decide to take the route with the 3 windows on the balcony there, the sentry gun can reach onto that as well, which is nice. Another spot I tried out whilst playing around with this raised area at the last was just on this little balcony here, but again I didn't have a lot of success here. Although it covers all the routes to the right really nicely, all it really takes is a sniper on the balcony opposite and they can quite easily take you out. So the last spot, a little bit more unusual, is on the slope towards the spawn door here. I'm building it so that only when it's at level 3 can it see over the ledge, and the reason I'm doing that is because it gives it some really nice cover, as you'll see in a sec. It's a little bit more unnoticeable, the idea that hopefully people won't notice it until it's too late. I'm still putting a dispenser up for the team, and as you can see this soldier just shot 3 or 4 rockets down onto the sentry gun and did very little damage. He jumps down and I'm able to take him out quite easily. We're getting to the end of this match now and the blue team are doing kind of one last push, and it kind of shows the potential of this spot. I think a lot of the team weren't exactly sure where they were being shot from and weren't able to pinpoint down exactly where the sentry gun was, so it was able to deal out a lot of damage and help stop the last push there. So yeah, definitely a spot with potential if you want to mix it up from the more usual spots. As always, I like to kind of end on a note about the mini sentry. When you're dealing with the last control point, the mini sentry can be really useful in those games where you're kind of really pressured for time maybe you don't want to just be kind of tortoise shelling. If you just want to get out there and play maybe a bit more aggressively, then yeah, the mini can be great for that. I often use it on last. Throw a mini down in loads of different spots, running around like a loony, causing a little bit of mayhem. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If there are any spots you use and you think are really cool and I've not mentioned here, then I'd love to hear from you. This is just a small selection of some of the spots I like to use, of which there are hundreds to choose from, so keep mixing it up and keep exploring. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you mofos in the next one.
Second, my second.